process of integration requires us to have a cohesive society. That is exactly why it is so critical. At the same time, how do we build an integrated society? Well, that is by making sure that there is understanding, there is respect, and there is acceptance, whether as a Singaporean or as an immigrant. A very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Montage of Singapore, and this is episode 10. My name is Renuka, and I have great pride today in welcoming you to this wonderful episode, yet another one, which is going to be a jewel in the crown of the Montage of Singapore. Well, what's making it very, very special is, of course, the fact that not only do we, on the sets of Montage of Singapore, interact with our esteemed guests, but at the same time, it is you, as our audiences, who make it even more special. Well, the past few weeks that you and I have been in touch, well, we have been receiving a lot of feedback, some sort of experiences as well that you have kind of gone through as a Singaporean or not a Singaporean, maybe an immigrant from another country. But all of them are extremely precious. And we promise you that we are going to convey these messages to the National Integration Council to make sure that each one of you is heard through MastiAVI Network. Well, we are the proud presenters of Montage of Singapore and supported by National Integration Council. Today is episode 10. Well, the special part of Montage of Singapore today is that my guest is also someone who has been referred to us by one of our very ardent audiences, and her name is Nidhi. Thank you so much, guys. We told you if there is a Singapore story that you believe you can bring to the sets, we promise to feature that. And that is exactly what we are doing. Well, on the sets of Montage of Singapore, before we get going with the rest of the show, it is time for us to present the highlights of last week. Stay tuned. I don't have one, but two guests today, ladies and gentlemen, in the studio and on the sets of Montage of Singapore, episode 9. And I tell you, they are not two, they're quite a handful. And Shrey and Gorangi, welcome to the sets.
Yeah, I'm just more open now, which is great.
Awesome. So that's what Singapore's taught you. And
my home was so Indian.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But outside is all Singaporean. So they were both deep parts of me. But come on, you have to play Holi first, right? Come on, let's have some color.
No.
You don't want color? Put some color on me. Choose.
Are you sure?
Yeah, whatever, any color. Come on.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, and you have to say, Holy hair!
Holy hair!
So which festival did you guys start celebrating after coming to Singapore like it was your own?
Well, for me it would be Chinese New Year for sure.
Yeah?
Because, and it's great, and learning the significance of the offering of the oranges and things like that. And you just do a little bit of that, and when you're able to embrace others' cultures, they embrace you wholly as well. Ironically, I would miss the freedom in Singapore.
You would miss the freedom.
And when I say freedom, I mean safe freedom.
Yes.
Because
What are you?
ooh,
What ooh? What is that?
I'm just like,
No, what
like
was
she
this
dared to
ooh?
ask that.
Yes,
Hey, look, what I'm saying is, you're a legend.
I'm a legend now.
Yeah,
Oh my
correct.
God.
So they were all Chinese and Malays in the old age homes, and then I performed Kathak, and they were just intrigued by the performance and what's this new art form.
And I was blessed that in my NS journey, I managed to find, the Singapore Armed Forces Music and Drama Company, just create a good time for them, and also allow them to explore what civil defense would mean. What does it really mean to protect Singapore? Is a fourth generation Singaporean. And apart from being a leader in the corporate world, she's also serving as a grassroots leader for the People's Association in Singapore since 2017, and currently is the chairperson for the IAEC Queenstown GRC.
Yeah, I mean, you're the legend, you make the trends, right?
Yeah, you make the trends.
You make the trends.
Exactly.
All right, I'm giving up. But thank you so much, guys, for being on the show today. I think it's been amazing. Episode 10, and of course I welcome each one of you to this special episode. Who are we meeting today, guys? Well, the reason I am a little bit surprised is that so far I have not been on my shows meeting anybody who's a fourth generation Singaporean. Isn't that amazing? Just think about it. Someone who was here through great-grandparents, then of course at the same time has lived here in Singapore and overseas as well, has studied overseas, then has been living in Singapore, contributing to the economic, of course, growth of Singapore. And then apart from that, also been contributing immensely in the area of arts. Not only that, has also been a grassroots leader since 2017, and above that is also holding a very prestigious position of being the chairperson of the IAEC, Queenstown GRC. Well, sometimes I do wonder, how do people get to do so many things? Where do they get the time from? How do they really have the energy? And most of all, how many roles can one person play? Well, let's figure that out, guys. This is our guest in the spotlight today, coming up in just a few seconds. And of course, I need to welcome Ranjani. Welcome to Montage of Singapore. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much, Arunika, for having me here.
It's
a
such
pleasure.
It's my pleasure.
So my honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be here and sharing your story. Ranjani, you know what? I was so excited the day our listener, our audience, you know, one of them, who's been really a very close friend as well, she said, you know what? I love your show and I want to introduce someone. And I was like, come on, tell me. And you remember, when we started talking, we were just talking and talking and discussing.
Yes, indeed. I remember that. And really, I'm really feel so honored that somebody actually referred me to you like this as well.
Sweet. You must have done something to impress people. So Ranjani, tell me something. Sure. The way we expect our audience to talk about themselves is either in a fun, interesting way or to have an object, you know, which sort of gives away the whole story of their lineage and a lot more. And you have a lot to tell us. So what do we have from you?
Sure. Okay. I have this little, okay, this is actually out of my daughter's debut dance program booklet, where it shows her lineage. I'm the 4th generation. Her lineage is she's the 5th generation.
Wow.
So so we have 5 generations of us living in Singapore now. And in this, I just wanted to share with you, so here, because you know, we have 5 generations of family involved in the arts.
Yes.
But more importantly, 3 generations associated with the Singapore Indian Fine Arts Society in dance. So we thought it was apt to title it Parampara or you know, a lineage, I guess.
Interesting.
So, and to tell you very quickly about that, my great-grandfather came to Singapore in 1895, and he actually came in a fishing boat. You know, you've heard about this, but he decided, he came down all the way from India, just deciding to make a living in Singapore, decided cross Penang, cross Malacca, and then decided to make Singapore as his base.
Amazing.
So very glad that he did that. My grandfather was born here. And I had 5 aunts, an uncle, and all of them were, were actually education. They were teachers in the education ministry in Singapore.
Wow.
And my grandma, who was very involved in the arts, wanted to get them involved somehow in the cultural integration. And I must tell you a little bit about my grandmother. She came from India, and you know, you'd be surprised that, you know, for someone who, and integration started then, because we were living in a community where the current SOTA is.
What year was this?
This was probably when she came, it must have been about 1926.
Wow.
Or 1928, when my grandma got married from India.
Yeah.
And think about it, in those days, there were no flights. And she came by ship. So she literally remained here for about 20, 30 years before she went back to see her family in India.
Because there were no flights. She couldn't even go back. Once she was here,
she went by ship. She was here and she went back. She traveled back 30 years later by ship. Wow. But while she was here, that's when World War II happened, the Japanese occupation, and she became very creative. And also after that, you know, we all had to live in a community, and we were living where the current SOTA is, the School of the Arts. There were 16 properties actually there, and it was like a real kampung. My grandparents lived there between 1939 to 1979, so 50 years.
Wow.
Until the government took the land back to build SOTA.
And you remember that?
Yeah, I was born there. So when I was actually, I have vague memories, but I was born there. So my grandma, integration started then, because not just the language, she learned how to speak Malay, and she learned, we are vegetarians, so she learned how to cook Singaporean food from way back then, like mee goreng, laksa.
How did she learn the recipes?
She saw the color
Uh-huh.
and she saw the way it was made, and then she imagined it and she tried to make it vegetarian style.
Amazing. I tell you today, guys, I have a feeling that I'm sitting right in front of a history book. And you know, we've just crossed 1920s and a boat. And in my vision, it was like a boat coming, carrying the grandmother and the grandfather, and then the sota and the houses around that. And then, of course, she was born, Ranjani was born.
Yeah.
And then Ranjani says the houses were taken away. And then suddenly there were condos all around. So we've just lived through those, right? Moments. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think so that was food, and I think the language, like my mom and my aunts, all of them, those days until Tamil became an official language in Singapore, they all actually took Malay
When
in
did
school.
that happen?
That was after Singapore's independence, and the government decided that we're going to have 4 official languages.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So when by the time I went to school, it became mandatory to actually learn your mother tongue.
So tell me something. So you've taken us through the evolution of Singapore. But what about the immigrants? When did you first start realizing that there were, you know, people with different faces kind of walking around, and it was getting to be a part of Singapore?
So I would say, I think that slowly started happening, I think once we started going to school and the flights started coming back to Singapore, right? So when there were regular flights, although you wouldn't say there was too much of travel then and forth, me personally, I think I had a lot more interaction because my dad came from India. And so I used to visit my grandparents, and so we used to fly.
Right.
But otherwise, a lot of them started coming here for work and businesses as well.
Okay.
So slowly you started talking to them. But I would say in the 80s, it was still, in my growing up years, I think it was more mixing with a lot of old timers and their kids who are still in Singapore. I think when there were more and more flights and there were a lot more transportation between Singapore and India, maybe late 80s, 90s, I think that's when you started seeing a lot more of them.
So that's how things started changing in Singapore, and the face of Singapore. And now we have the Marina Bay Sands, we have a beautiful skyline. Come on, think about it.
I have to tell you, when we were growing up, I mean, literally, I remember we didn't have the MRT at that time.
Yeah.
We didn't have social media at that
my
time.
God.
There was non-air conditioned buses in Singapore at that time.
Oh, did that ever happen?
Yes, of course. And so we used to have, you know, when we go to, and one very fond memory in school, when you say integration, right?
Yes.
All of us, and I'm sure a lot of my peers can attest to this, where we used to have in school mandatory drinking of milk after your recess. So I remember my banana milk, and then after drinking the banana milk, we had to sit down and brush our teeth together, squatting by the drain. And so that was one of my, you know,
Squatting by the drain.
And we will all brush our teeth. We all had to bring a little cup. And we had little toothbrushes.
No.
And we used to, like, you know.
What world are you talking about? Because when I came to Singapore, frankly, you know, the air-conditioned buses were there, the MRT was fantastic,
No.
and the condos were already there, unaffordable as they are today.
No, we've been through the phase where, and you know, there was no social media. So a lot of us used to meet up. In school, the ice cream man used to come outside our school compounds, and every time he'll ring the bell, we'll all run out. That was our excitement. We used to go out. Phones were not really there, so after school we all used to hang out, maybe have a little picnic and you know, just chit chat. But yeah, so I think, so you know, while Singapore has really grown now, I think I kind of miss the old days in a way.
I do as well.
The kampung spirit.
I miss it as well. I mean, if you have seen the days that you just defined, they just sound so beautiful. I can imagine how much you must be missing them, because I miss the days when I came to Singapore. You know, I was here and I remember the Juchiat place that today we have with a lot of buildings and a lot of restaurants. It used to be just very, very laid back. I remember, of course, there was no Marina Bay Sands. Of course, there were no skyscrapers, you know, the ones we have, like the LV showroom or the Apple. You couldn't even think about it. And the Merlion was pretty much where it was at that time. But now think about it, things are so different.
It's different, but you know, that's evolution for you. So I think globalization, it has made the world a lot smaller, where you can actually talk to people, but it has also, in a way, maybe made I would say integration a little more challenging. That's why the government is on it right now. It's because of, you know, everybody they have access to whatever they have at home so easily. I think in those days, you didn't have access to that so easily. So when you're in a place, like my grandmother, like she basically integrated very quickly because that is all she knew, right? She had no
And
contact
that
with
is
family back home.
exactly why we have community initiatives such as the Montage of Singapore, so that
Yes.
we can interact
Exactly.
and really remember those amazing days that we had back in the 20s and the 50s and the 70s. But before we move ahead, guys, I think what we need to do is say a hi, quick one, to very, very popular lady here sitting with me. I tell you, she has loads of fans, as I can see. So let's start looking at, all right, the messages here. There is Lalita who says hi to me. Of course, that is, I also have a little bit of following. Hello, my dear Lalita, how are you? And of course, then there's Krishnan Rangan who is saying, looking forward to this conversation. And that is?
My dad. Well, yeah, so you can see my name.
Yeah, so you better live up to that lineage, all right?
Yeah.
And Sunita says, hi Sunita, how are you? Thank you so much for joining, guys. There's Swarn Kala Mandir saying congratulations. There's Sandhya Satyamurthy also saying awesome, Ranjani. She's just started, believe me, guys. There's a long way and she's going to really impress you. There's Krishnan Rangan, of course, saying well narrated. You've got the points there. Yeah. Then Jamuna says, great to know of your ancestors, great-grandfather coming to Singapore, grandmother's culinary skills of local dishes and vegetarian recipes, etc. Well conveyed. Interesting. Lata says, interesting conversation. And Sapna says, hello. So,
Yeah, thank
wow.
you. Thank you.
Do you want to say something to them quickly?
Thank you all so much for joining us today. I think it's so interesting to be here, and I'm sure there's a lot more that we're going to be discussing. So stay tuned.
Oh, wow. I just realized that my job's been taken away. So she's going to be hosting the rest of the show, guys. And of course, on Montage of Singapore. Let's take a short break right here. We'll be back with the next segment, as I popularly call it, the joy of Singapore. But, well, let me tell you, it's a very, very interesting. So don't go away. I'm going to catch her with some questions that she's not aware of at all. I promise you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. On the sets of Montage of Singapore, we have a lady who's doing, tell me quickly what it is. I told her, no, I'm not telling you anything. So, well, Ranjani, welcome once more.
Thank you.
And I hope you are quite pretty much settled and there is, I'm not scaring you anymore.
No, you're not. Don't worry. No,
not
you didn't scare
anymore.
me then. I think it's always daunting to be on a live show.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true. And I totally
you can't
understand.
edit if you want to. So.
You won't say anything wrong. I know that. So, as you know, Ranjani, the joy of Singapore is all about happiness. It's about smiles. It's about a lot more. It's about you and I and a lot more people who are watching us. And of course, what they think, what brings happiness to them. You know, Singapore itself, of course, does in many ways. But then I have two questions and I'll try to catch you on these. Yeah.
Okay.
So, so the first question that I have for Ranjani today is about the festival. Yeah. Which is your favorite festival, by the way? The one that you celebrate. Which is that?
Okay, I love Deepavali.
You
because,
do?
I
do too.
I love Deepavali. I love actually a lot of our Singapore festivals because growing up again, we used to celebrate a lot of our friends' festivals. So Chinese New Year, even Chinese New Year, my family, we used to gather. We'll do the Yusheng together on a yearly basis. Same way, you know, Hari Raya, we'll visit all of our Malay friends. And in fact, one of our like very close family friends, she used to grow the herbs during Hari Raya, like gado-gado and all that, and tahu goreng. Sometimes they will add prawn paste, but because we're vegetarians, she used to make the most amazing food.
Wow.
So whenever we used to visit her.
Food always remains at the center, doesn't it? So,
it does.
So now that you've mentioned Deepavali and you've mentioned a lot of others,
in
tell
fact,
me.
for Deepavali, we used to. We have, like, you know, being Singaporean, and a lot of my friends from India would ask me, why are you serving all these kuehs and the cookies? Because normally it's Diwali sweets, it's murukku, it's whatever, right? So, but that's really what makes us Singaporean. So
it's fusion Deepavali now
exactly
for us, right?
Yes.
We end up doing that so many times.
Yes.
So my question is that, is there a festival that originates in another community? Yeah, which you wish was yours and that you could really play and you could enjoy?
Okay, so maybe I would say that, not wish that maybe it's mine, but I would say that more being exposed to the culture. Like in those days, one of the festivals that maybe I was never really exposed to was Holi. So this is something that, over the years, it was so interesting to get to know more about this festival and playing and being a part of such a festival. So I think that
Holi is definitely amazing. But the one thing you don't want to do is play your first Holi with me. I promise you don't want to do that. Because if you play that with me, anything that I find, whether it's mud, it's seawater.
Oh, you just throw it on me?
Yeah, not on you, but on anyone. Okay. That's the fun of it, guys.
Keep that in mind, Renuka. So.
But you will enjoy it. I promise you. Yeah. All right. And then my favorite question that I ask everybody. Did you watch all our previous episodes?
I watched some. Yes, I did.
Oh, so you know this question. Yeah. I'm sure you've thought about the answer.
Okay, you ask me, and I'll tell you. Yeah.
All right. So, no one wants to leave Singapore. The moment people arrive here, they just love every bit about the beautiful city, right? But if, hypothetically, you were to leave Singapore, right, what would you miss the most and what would you miss the least?
Okay, so it's not hypothetical. I did leave the country for 13 years.
Yeah.
So I lived in the UK for about a couple of years, and then I was in the US for 10 years.
Right.
So both my daughters were born there. I was working in the US. I was studying in the UK. So I think, what I miss, so the first question is, what do I miss the most when I left, right?
Yes.
So I think definitely it's got to be food. We just spoke about it. I think food binds all Singaporeans.
I know. Totally.
So I remember I lived in Dallas, Texas. I think, when there was a Singaporean restaurant, and those days in 2000s, you didn't have much of a large, like all the immigrants were coming there, but you didn't have too many Singaporeans.
Oh, okay.
So around 2004, 2005 was when if I remember correctly, the first Singaporean restaurant opened, and it was like a 1 hour drive away.
Oh,
so
really?
I was like so excited. So I drove all the way, and they had some vegetarian options. We used to cook it at home, but nothing like having it over there. So definitely food. I miss also to a certain extent a sense of community there. The reason being is, I guess I was an expat over there, right? So I wasn't local, but your friends become your family over there.
That is true.
And I think the culture there is, because Singapore is a small island city, everybody's busy, you can get around easily and it's not difficult. But whereas over there, work finishes by a certain time and then you come back, and on the weekends, nobody really wants to cook. Eating out is expensive over there. So generally these potluck parties are huge, and homes are bigger there as well.
Oh, really?
So you can host, like Texas, everything is big. So homes are bigger, so you could host large gatherings or friends parties, and people from different communities
and
used
work
to come
harder
together.
and then clean up later.
Yes.
Clean up later yourself.
No, actually everybody helps out. So
Yeah, but still yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, agreed. In fact, when I came back to Singapore, and that was something that I tell people.
That is amazing.
That, when I had fresh food cooked for me when I came home, I literally cried after came home from my job the first time. But I do miss that. So I miss my friends. I miss that
And
sense
miss the
of...
least?
And okay, so the least I would say, I definitely don't miss
really
the
wanna-
humidity. No, I don't miss the humidity.
on.
I'm not a winter girl, but I think I do miss spring and fall.
Okay.
And because sometimes it gets very humid in Singapore, so the weather
That
to a certain
it does.
extent. What else do I miss? I miss the space. I miss the long drives. I miss, having, so that's a trade-off, right? Because everything else is great here,
Of
but I
course,
think,
of course.
and that's why I chose to come back. So mine coming back was actually by choice. So I was really settled there. When my older girl was about 4.5, I said, you know what? I'm going to come home for a while, because I think Singapore is ultimately the
Home.
best place in the world to live in, and it is home for me.
And I'm always very
And
proud to say
I
that.
was one of those
Yes.
typical teenagers that used to actually say, 18 years old, I want to get out. I want
I'm
to see
not
the
gonna
world.
come back.
Yeah, but then no, I did that. I've been there, done that, but I did come back, and I came back by
Lovely.
choice.
Well, that
So-
is home is where the heart is. That's
Yes.
what it is, right?
100%.
All right. On that note, we have a question here. So let's check that out. It's a question that says, "Hi Ranjani, I'm from Queenstown, and when there is a cultural event there, apart from an opportunity to perform, no other involvement from us Indian expats is welcome. How do we integrate?"
Okay. Well, definitely come talk to me. Since you said you're in Queenstown, you're obviously one of my residents. So please come talk to me. But surely, I think you can start getting yourself involved in a lot more of the CC events. There's a lot of food event that happens. There's a lot of fun events that take place, not just within the IAEC, but to the larger CC at large. So come talk to me and we will give you more details as to how you can come in and be a part of us and integrate with us a lot more. But I'm so glad you asked that question. And definitely talk to me. Yeah.
Lovely. That's exactly
I
how
hope that answered your question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
exactly how a leader talks, guys. When
Yeah.
you have a problem, this is where you reach them and they will take care of that. So make sure that you meet her and involve yourself in much, much more, because I can assure you all the past episodes that we've had, ladies and gentlemen, we've asked this to a lot of our grassroots leaders specifically, right? And they've all said there are ample opportunities for everybody. We don't look at communities. We just invite and we integrate with everyone that's possible. And that's exactly what our next section is all about. It's called Community Champions, and we're going to get there and figure out what has Ranjani done to be here from the community perspective, of course. Stay tuned.
Available anywhere across the world with the app Radio Masti 24/7. The 24-hour station offers a vast variety of programs filled with local, global and Indian content along with Bollywood gossip and updates. Make sure you add Masti to your lives. Download the app today and stay energized and connected on the go. Radio Masti 24/7 Live, Singapore's only Bollywood radio since 2009.
Welcome back yet again on Montage of Singapore. And of course, whenever we reach this section, I always wonder, whoever I speak to in Singapore, and including myself, there is community, and there is definitely giving back to the larger self, not just yourself. It's right at the top of mind. I've seen that. Many times I wonder, what else can I do to give back to the community? And when I talk to people, they always say, you know what, we do this, we're a part of the arts, we're a part of, we're part of the neighborhood community work, we're a part of an association which takes care of children. There is just so much. So, grassroots leaders, there are lots of them that I know of. Well, from the country that I come, it is maybe not called grassroots leadership, but I also don't see everybody in the neighborhood really, really giving back to the community the way we see in Singapore. So let me welcome once more Ranjani, and of course at the same time ask you, 17 years as the grassroots leader, and of course now the chairperson. So tell me something. All these years, was there something that always comes to your mind? Some instances, some stories that you can share where you feel the community work kind of just got you there and you said, there is so much more I can do?
So actually my community work extends, so I do the grassroots. I'm also as well involved in the arts. So I'm part of the, I'm in CFAS, I'm in the SIOC as well.
Yes.
And in everywhere we are trying to give back to the community in some way. Now, specific to my grassroots work, I think I've done various roles. So I've been part of the neighborhood committee where I've had real stories about a condo resident where I was in a where one of these residents was in a very Singaporean condo.
Okay.
And she was one of the only expats over there. And so she's had raised it to me that, she said she's finding it hard to sort of integrate. I mean, very on the same topic. And she told me that because she was the only expat Indian there and she was looking to move out. So I asked her, I said, maybe have you tried speaking and to the people there, maybe they're Singaporean Chinese or Indians. I said, have you tried talking to them? Maybe that might help. Or maybe you could come together, invite her to your house, tell her a little bit more about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, I'll try that. And so somehow, and I got a few of our Singaporean residents to sort of welcome her in. And she is, slowly, I think she started integrating. But I think at the end of the day, her heart was where, she felt that she needed a sense of belonging. So she moved out of the condo eventually. And I think she went in to that. I've also been part of the naturalization committee as well. So for new citizens. So we have done a lot of door knocking exercises, trying to integrate the new citizens. And I was especially focused on the minorities, simply because, culturally it might be easier, I thought, that for me to talk to them and see how they could bring them into the system. And then, of course, I was part of the community club management committee as well. And so there I had actually gotten some of them to come involve themselves in the activities, just like how one of the residents asked the similar question. Amazing. They came and were part of this. Now, of course, I'm part of the IAEC. I chair the IAEC in Queenstown. And this is exactly, and my committee is actually very diverse. So I do have Singaporean like myself, many, many decades of living here in Singapore. And you also have the new residents who have come in and helping us in the grassroots level. And from there, I think we try to do a lot of smaller events where there's much more interaction. So we do the large ones like your Deepavali shows and stuff, but we do smaller events to bring the community together and try to see how, they'd be able to interact with each other.
That's beautiful.
And so that's basically it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Lovely. Yeah. So I was thinking that, the instance that you just shared with us, for example, it is not something that only you have heard. It is something that I have heard. And I can tell you that usually when people move from a certain country, they try to look for, where do people like me live? So it's like birds of a feather flock together kind of thing, right? But I just feel that at the same time, isn't it important that right at that level, whether it's the HDBs, it's the condos, special effort should be made, to make sure that the thing is that it's a little bit tricky, because the moment you start dividing that so many non-Singaporeans living, or so many Indians, or so many Eurasians, or whatever living in that particular area, then of course we'll start considering, that this place is not really a Singaporean place or a non-Singaporean. We can categorize. So we cannot be so open about it, but at the same time, I think at that level, we need more integration efforts, don't you think?
I think from a government level, I think there's a lot of integration. I mean, that's what, at least I'm seeing it at the grassroots level. They're trying to and this is a constant topic, like, how do you bring everybody together? But I think integration is not about what you do at the government level, but how it comes from within. I think both, and the onus, I think, is higher on the new immigrants that are coming in, because they have to see how to blend in and reach out. I think Singaporeans to a lot, I think, at least for me, I feel Singaporeans are largely friendly, and I think if you come out there and say, hey guys, how do you do this? Or maybe speak some Singlish, learn some Singlish.
Well, let's hear that. Let's hear that. Okay, I want you to explain this line to me in Singlish, like, come on guys, immigrants, come and say hi to us. Come on.
Okay. Come on, la guys, come and speak with us. Be one of us. So,
come la.
Yeah, come la. So as long as you're, but I think that is, so a little bit of Singlish, learning, seeing the customs. I mean, my husband is a new immigrant. I mean, he just got his citizenship recently.
Oh, really?
And I tell him, but he's quite well integrated already, but I tell him, no, now I think I keep getting the bar higher and higher. I say, now you have to eat durians. And he's like, no, I'm not getting there. Do you eat durians, Renuka?
I have never tried a durian, but that doesn't make me less of a Singaporean, okay? Oh my God, you just got me there. Thank you very much. Okay, and I tell you what, I've never had laksa as well.
Really?
Yes.
You should come and try mine. I make a very good vegetarian laksa. Make a mean one. So
this is exactly what I wanted, an invitation.
I see. So you're welcome to my house. I'll make you a vegetarian laksa.
That's fine, vegetarian or not. I'm coming to your house and eating that anyway. But you know what? I feel that this integration effort that we are trying to make on the sets of Montage of Singapore or otherwise, it needs to be both ways.
Yes.
And a simple fact that maybe you get to know your neighbor, maybe one neighbor, and that can be kind of something to start with. You're just embracing anyone around.
Exactly.
And it could be your own kind of race, your own ethnicity, but get to know your neighbor.
Exactly.
And
bring that kampung spirit. And I think that's why we are all living in, like, most of us live in apartments.
Exactly.
And you have that facility, you have that ability to actually get to know them.
Yes.
Reach out. I think the government is doing whatever it can to try to bring everybody together. And it is it's definitely on the top of the charts. But I think from within. I think the new immigrants who are here, anybody, it could be the Indians, Chinese, or anyone, Eurasians, whoever come here, and they love it. Like many of them actually love this country.
They do.
But again, a word of advice is that don't use this as just a stepping board to, for greener pastures in another country. I mean, that's great if you get a job, but when you're in Singapore, consider it your home as well.
Give Singapore your best. And I know what you're aiming at right now. And I think that's a message. That's a clear message, guys, because most of us, when we come from another country and we have made Singapore a transit hub, it's not right. Because during that transit, we try to get our permanent residence. We try to get that permanence in a country without feeling that we're going to be here and give it back as much. And that is where I think the change needs to come, even from the immigrants' end. Singaporeans will really embrace you and embrace the differences. But the important thing is that, are you planning to give yourself as much back to the nation? That's important. But here, I know why you said that. Yeah. Why don't you tell us very quickly the reason why you said this, so that, we are able to talk about a problem that does exist.
Definitely. And I think, the reason I brought it up, I mean, in the past, when, we were all as one community, if you notice, the PRs were being given away like anything. And I think a lot of new immigrants are finding it challenging, from an employment pass to get a PR, and from a PR to become a citizen. It's much harder in the last 13, 14 years. But it really wasn't like that way before that. And one of the key reasons, in my view, would be like national service. I think I've seen personally like friends and people in the community who have actually given it up, especially if they have sons, so that they didn't have to actually go through the national service and go off for university. I think that became a huge point of contention for a lot of Singaporeans. Sooner or later, from a governmental standpoint, we had to see some sort of a demarcation. And I think it has just become tougher. So I think once you blend in, you realize this is Singapore, you contribute back. And I understand for today's PR, it is no longer just getting it because you are, earning really well or you're a top banker. They actually see what you do, give back to the community as well. And I think that's great, because that will not just get you more in tune with the country, and with the people. I think it'll also give you a sense of belonging, that, hey, I belong here now.
Absolutely. Well said. So I think the important bit is that it's about giving back to the country as much. I do remember, many times people used to think that because we have a son, we are going to get the PR very easily. Yeah. But nowadays, there is no formula. There is really no formula. You can go back, you can calculate and recalculate and think that, having a son, sending him for national service or whatever is also no guarantee, because end of the day, it's about what you are giving back to the community, not just a little bit or a few years or whatever, but much more than that, because Singapore needs that.
Exactly.
And that's really what we are here about. Fantastic. I love this conversation. So why don't we take a short break? I think she needs to have some water. And we'll be back in just about 10 seconds, guys, to kind of conclude today's show, which I'm hating to say goodbye to, by the way, but stay tuned. All right. Well, this is the time that I hate as well as love. So I hate it because it's pretty much the end of our show, but I love it because this is the time I offer to you this very special giveaway. This is one of the 13 exclusive copies in Singapore, presented to you on the sets.
Beautiful.
It's the colored version and the black and white version.
Oh, wow.
And this is done by 9 Studios, especially for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Thank you very, very much for this.
So this is the time you thank us.
No, I have to say, guys, thank you so much for having me here. I think I have to thank Media Masti and National Integration Council especially for having me here today. And you, Renuka, it was lovely chatting with you and, sharing what we have. I think, as you rightly said, having been here through so many decades, coming from a family who has been, so integrated, and then later on now coming in to do this community work. It's an ongoing effort, and I think definitely with shows like this and awareness like this and excellent people like yourselves hosting this, I think we should be able to get there. So thank you so much for bringing this very important topic to the forefront and having me here today.
Thank you so much, Ranjani. I have to admit that you have added a lot of real stuff to today's show, not only to Montage of Singapore, but otherwise to the community, because the kind of topics that you have raised, we don't have much time, so because of that, we couldn't really get into the details. But definitely, you have touched the chord. And this is where our job sort of begins, because this is where the community starts thinking. There is food for thought right from here. So thank you so much for being on the sets today. Thank you.
Thank you.
But before you go, you know what you have to do. The next style of the Montage of Singapore is ready tomorrow. So who are we going to talk to tomorrow on the sets?
Okay, so this is my favorite part, and it's indeed my greatest honor to actually let you know that the next person who's going to come on is a very dear friend of mine. She's a celebrity in Singapore, and I had my own fangirl moment with her in the 90s growing up. And she's done a lot of stage plays. She's very well entrenched in the community, someone you definitely don't want to miss seeing tomorrow. So please, please tune in and watch. Thank you so much. Watch the program.
That's a very good sales pitch, by the way. I love it. But just before I let you go, there are some comments here that I do want you to know before, So there is Jamuna again saying awesome and congratulations. So awesome and congratulations.
Thank you.
There's Biren, our guest from episode 2, who is right now saying a tough balance with reference to time for the family work versus service. Kudos to you and people like yourselves.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
And then he also says, nice sari, Renuka. So,
oh, wow. So. Yeah, your sari is gorgeous.
So is yours for that matter. And then we have, hi Aarti, thank you so much for being here. And of course, there's Nidhi, the lady who actually introduced you to us today. She's watching and she says, lovely to see both beautiful ladies here. And then you want to thank her?
Thank you, Nidhi. Thank you so much. Can I share? She's actually, she's with me in the grassroots as well.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
This mutual admiration club going on. Oh, she's wonderful. I'm sure
she's an amazing person and full of energy. Thank you, Nidhi. Thank you so much.
All right. And then there's Raji saying, well done, Ranjani. There is Manju Balakrishnan saying, enjoyed it, well balanced. And then there's Sri saying, great sharing, Ranjani. Wonderful stories too. Well, I assure you guys, Ranjani has many, many more stories, but unfortunately, we don't have the time today. And I'm going to continue this backstage with you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Renuka.
So well, as the tiles of Montage of Singapore build time and one tile at a time, I say that tomorrow is going to be yet another one. But before we go today, I must say that as the challenges arise, we have no choice but to embrace the immigrants who are coming to the country. Well, they do form a very important part. They add to the Singapore's workforce in a very diversified way. They enhance our global competitiveness, and they do contribute to the cultural vibrancy of the country as well. Well, overall, working with them and of course, living with them means that we are only adding more and more experience to ourselves, and of course, making sure that Singapore moves ahead in a multicultural and a multi-diverse way. There is no choice, because that is exactly the way of the world. And what more do we want but people coming to us, contributing to the nation, and then being a part of our big family? Isn't that the best of both worlds, guys? So embrace them and start by knowing your neighbor today. Thank you so much for joining on this show today. This is episode 10 that I'm winding up at the moment. My name is Renuka, and of course I do want to thank the presenters, Masti Media Network, and supported by National Integration Council. Right here, if you want to watch this show again, it's on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and most of all, Radio Masti 24/7 app under the tab MastiAVI. Stay well, stay healthy. Until we meet tomorrow, 6 p.m. Singapore time. Well, have a good time. Bye for now.